Can you believe it? 2024 is over. We're in 2025. We should be in the future. We should have lightsabers and flying cars. And yet we don't. But you know what we do have? We still have books. And that's why in 2024, I challenged myself to read more books than I had in the previous, and that landed me around 17 books. Now these books are in a wide range. I read some books on paganism, some on mythology, some on mindfulness and spirituality, and of course the Vision Quest book. So in this video, I want to discuss with you my book recommendations for you going into 2025. And they are going to kind of be from this wide range of content choices here, ranging from the fantasy to the self-help, to the paganism, to the mythology, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, I think it's very healthy to have a wide range of books that you read. And again, I recognize that even like the fiction and the fantasy, I stopped reading for a long time because I was so focused on reading the nonfiction and the self-help and things like that. But this really is just a reflection on the books I've read in 2024 and recommending the ones I think you should read going into 2025. And of course, I want to hear your thoughts. Have you read these books before? Have they been helpful to you? Or do you hate them? I hope you don't hate them. I think they're pretty good. But also let me know, and the other viewers and commenters of this channel, what books you've read in 2024 and what ones you think would be helpful to the people here on this channel. Overall, I just want this to be a little bit of a reflective video, a sharing video, and just an exchange video, an exchange of knowledge. Because I think one of the greatest gifts we have in this world is books. Because honestly, AI is starting to scare me a little bit, and so I'd like to just sit down and read a good paper book. But let's stop talking about the doom and gloom of our future and reflect on the books I've read this year and the books I think would be helpful for you, the viewers of this channel here, the Wisdom of Odin. So, book number one. Now this is a big one. Number one book I think you need to read going into 2025, if you haven't read it already, is Soulcraft by Bill Plotkin. Now this is a book that I've been reading on and off, and I officially finished in 2024 as I prepared to go into my first ayahuasca experience. This book, while really good at preparing you for the soul initiation, as Bill Plotkin puts it, which is essentially the hero's journey, which I'm going to be talking about in a video coming up, this really is a book about transformation, and it's non-denominational in the sense it is for everyone. It uses language that everyone can understand, and so it's really accessible to most people. And it's not so like clinical that it's not enjoyable to read. It actually is really inspiring to read. And I've written down a lot of the different quotes from this book and highlighted a lot of different things because it spoke to me so much. And I often go back to these quotes and reflect on them within my own life. And every person that I finally convinced to pick up this book and that read it are like, holy shit, this is crazy. Because it reflects so much of the spiritual journey, the pagan journey, and the journey of healing and self-discovery. And ultimately, if you're watching these videos, if you're on this channel, you're more than likely on a healing journey, on a journey of self-discovery, on a journey of discovering the old gods. And so all this is wrapped into this soul initiation. Now, definitely as we make our way through this list, not all of these authors are people I've heavily researched. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know their entire life story. But if I've learned anything from the past of making YouTube videos for the last 5 years, there's always going to be someone in the comments saying, well, didn't you hear Bill Plotkin did this one thing that one time? Honestly, that's not why I recommend these books. And I don't think that's why we should read books. So I highly recommend, just as like a soapbox moment, is don't get so lost on, well, this one time I heard this one thing from this one person on that one guy. You could read the same things about me. There are people that say, well, Jacob, he did one thing this one time, this one thing, and I heard this one thing. There are so many rumors. Ultimately, you have to make your own opinions. And when I'm recommending these books to you, I'm recommending them from the face value of the books that I've read and have they helped and inspired me. That is how I look at books. That is how I work at creative material. I don't look into this like super nitpicky, judgmental world we live in now. I hope that makes sense. I hope that doesn't come off as harsh, but truly, genuinely, I recommend these books, not necessarily because of the author, but because this book was so good. And Soulcraft is one of those books, and I say that because I've already read online, oh, Bill Plotkin, I don't like him. I think he's a bad person, like on Reddit. Like, if you see it on Reddit, it's more than likely not true. And so I'm just preparing myself, preparing you for the viewer. At the end of the day, I'm recommending these books on the face value of the book itself. So my second book recommendation is one mostly because you can finally find copies of it again. I've heard rumors of this book for a really long time, and it's always been that whisper of, oh, Jacob, have you heard of this one? You need to check this one out. And for 4 or 5 years now of doing Norse pagan related subjects, Norse mythology, Norse spirituality, I've never actually seen a copy with my own eyes. I've seen a PDF of it. But the book I recommend that you can find again, I found it in a bookstore, and supposedly you can still buy it online, is Seeds of Yggdrasil by Maria Quilov, if I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, I think so. But this is one of the biggest and most well-written books on Norse paganism as it survives today. This is like the tome. If there is one book that kind of encapsulates all that there is in Norse mythology, Norse paganism, Norse spirituality, the history, how it still survives today, with a lot of information, it's this. I mean, this is not for the faint of heart. I mean, every single page is full of information. I have not fully gone through it. I've gone through a few sections of it, and there's definitely some contradicting theories in the sense that like mainline Norse spirituality, Norse mythology probably doesn't agree with. She has alternative theories, and she definitely looks into like the origins of names. Like this is a very heady read. It's gonna question a lot of what you already know about Norse paganism and Norse belief. I know it does that for me. And so I'm sure there's people, again, that probably don't necessarily like this book because it kind of goes against a lot of the mainline thought processes. But the research that's done in here, the way it makes you question reality, I think is really important. There's so much of the same information that exists out there in book and internet format about Norse paganism, Norse belief, and Norse mythology, that I think it's really good that you have a book that is well researched, well thought out, and presents alternative theories and ways of thinking about the old Norse gods, the beliefs of the past. And seriously, there is just so much information in here, as well as in a complete bibliography of all the research, where it comes through. And so you have like, all of this is more research you can do. This book is expensive. I think I spent $75 on it when I found it in a bookstore, but seriously, holy shit, this book is so good. If you are into Norse paganism, Norse belief, and all of this, this is a book that is a must-have. It's a good one. I totally recognize this is a copy of that one guy I've seen on the internet that also has a red beard that does this exact thing. But I really love it. I've always wanted to do it on a video, so honestly, I just wanted to see what it looks like. And yeah, so total credit to him. I'll put his stuff right here. He's a genius if it was his idea, because I love this. Anyways, our next book recommendation is really any book by Ryan Holiday. Now, this is the Stoic philosophy writer. He's the creator of the Daily Stoic, which is a newsletter and an Instagram page, and he writes mini books on Stoicism. So I've read a few of his books this year. I read Discipline is Destiny, Courage is Calling, and The Obstacle is the Way. That should show you how much they were inspiring to me. Now, I read these on Kindle, that's why I don't have a physical copy to show you here, but I do recommend getting a physical copy of these books, because it really is, like, I don't want to use this terminology, but it's kind of like a Bible. It's like the Psalms or the Have 'em All. You can sit down and just read it for 5-10 minutes a day and be inspired by it. And I think that's really important, especially after going through the year I've gone through as far as like ayahuasca and the struggles and the hardships that came after that. I mean, I really had a very like breaking year. I mean, I just like, there was a point in Ireland, I was just crying on the sides of the cliffs of Ireland, just like, what am I doing with my life? And reading books such as Courage is Calling, Discipline is Destiny, The Obstacle is the Way, honestly, really helped me. Now, no book is going to be like the 100% cure-all for your life, but reading these books daily for, really a few months of this year really helped me embrace fear. And that was one of my biggest lessons from the ayahuasca experience, is how to not run away from fear, not conquer fear, but to embrace fear, to embrace the obstacle, to embrace the challenges of life. And I think that's an important lesson for absolutely everyone. And approaching things in a stoic way, I think, is really important. And the cornerstones of stoicism is to not react to things emotionally. Now, you can still feel the emotion, And because it's the principle of philosophy of that we can't necessarily always control what happens to us. We can only control how we react to those things. And I think that came really important when I got into that car accident in Ireland at the very end of my journey. I could have reacted to that very differently. And I reacted to it in a very stoic way. I came out of the car. I wasn't emotional. I mean, I just got into a car accident at the very end of my trip in Ireland. I should have been angry. I should have been upset with myself and all of this. And I felt those things, but I know I needed to react in a calm way. And so I got out of the car and I was just calm. I was calm to the other driver. I was a foreign driver in a foreign car in a foreign country. And this guy lived in this country. And I was just calm. I was like, sir, this is completely my bad. I'm 100% sorry. We're going to get this fixed. What can I do for you? Are you okay? Are you safe? Let's call our insurances. Let's do this. And I was calm. Even though inside I was like, ah! To me, that is stoicism, is reacting in the best way possible to an emotional situation. And I cannot tell you how many times this last year alone that has helped me. And so having a book that can kind of teach you that, but also inspire you to be that way, because that is a guiding point, that is a center that you're aiming for. But honestly, we lose that all the time. And I feel that. And I think a lot of the healing journey is partially becoming stoic, but becoming more true to yourself. And that's not something that you achieve and then you hold on to forever. It's something that you have to constantly kind of keep check on. And I think that's something that's not talked about enough in the healing space, in the spiritual community. And I think that's what breeds a lot of narcissism, is people that think that they go on a healing journey, they achieved being healed, and then they never have to do the work again. And I think that's where ego develops. And hey, that's another book by Ryan Holiday, which is Ego is the Enemy. And I think stoicism, these reflections are a great way to keep that in check, of understanding that just because we achieve some level of healing doesn't mean that we're not going to get hurt again. That doesn't mean that we don't have to continue to do that work. And yeah, so I think stoicism, the Ryan Holiday books, all these things are really good for people on that healing journey to maintain that level of empathy, to maintain that level of calmness and your own understanding of self. Let it never be said that I don't commit to these videos because I was like, I want to, oh, that is very muddy and sandy. Anyways, so the reason I'm sitting in this winter stream is because our next book recommendation is Wim Hof and the Wim Hof Method. So it's no surprise that I am reading the Wim Hof book, or I've read it this year, because I've already made videos on cold exposure and the importance of that and how much it's helped me. And I never thought I'd be the one to read his book that is supposedly written by him. I mean, I think it is because it's very much in his language and his way of speaking. But seriously, his book is so inspiring because it goes into like his life and how the cold has helped him. And this is also going with Ryan Holiday and his books. And it's all about embracing fear. And when you go to the cold, when you actually go to suffering, it helps you so much to prepare for life when suffering comes to you, because it's life. Suffering will always come to you, no matter what you try to do. And that's why it's more important to embrace that fear, to embrace the suffering, and to become one with that suffering. And cold exposure is the way to do that. And even when I stepped into this water here, it's like I've done this before. I've gone into colder water. And so even though it sucks, my feet are numb right now and they're tingling, at the same time I've done this before. I know what it's like. I know what suffering is. And reading the Wim Hof book really gives you that mindset. And again, it's inspiring. If you sit down and read this book for 10, 15 minutes, you're gonna walk away going like, yeah, I can do that. I can go to the cold water. I can suffer in life. And Wim Hof is definitely someone who has suffered in his life. His most tragic story is that his first wife committed suicide due to mental illness. Now, I should also mention here, this is why I had that precursor of like, I don't necessarily dive into the negatives of these authors. I look at them at face value because again, I've seen negative things about Wim Hof, how he reacted to his first wife's death, how his current method is possibly pseudoscience and all this. But at the end of the day, I look at the face value. There's actual research, there's actual knowledge, and there's practical skills within the Wim Hof book. And I think I could probably have a pretty chill time with Wim Hof. And, am I gonna sit here and be like, Wim Hof, I think he's a messiah? No, and I don't think anyone deserves that pressure or that level of perfection to look up to. I think Wim Hof is kind of unapologetically himself, and that means you have to take the good with the bad. And I think we're all human, just like me. I am unapologetically me, and that's why people get mad at me sometimes, is because I'm just like, I don't know, I hate politics. I don't know, it's whatever, man. And because that's who I am, people are like, well, since you don't take firm stances and things, that means I can't trust you. It's like, no, I just don't fall into a box of one thing or the other. And I think Wim Hof is kind of that way as well. But when you read his book, when you read what he says and what he actually believes in, what he believes in healing people, I think he is 100% serious. And reading his book, reading his methods, and actually using those methods, to read that book, to practice the methods, and to see the benefits for me. It's like, take the words, that's cool, but then practice it? Whoa, it's incredible. The fact that I'm sitting here, I'm like, it's whatever, man. Cold water, whatever. It's because I read his books, and it's because I know how to deal with this now. And I think it's truly incredible. So I do 100% recommend reading the Wim Hof book, looking into the Wim Hof method, and practicing it yourself, and seeing how it can benefit you. But ultimately, I think his book is also just inspiring for people who have gone through hardship, people who have gone through hard times, and learning how to cope with that, how to rise above it, how to meet it, and ultimately how to embrace the suffering so that it can make you stronger. And truly, it can. This is my final book of 2024 for myself. This is the one I'm finishing up now at the time of recording this video, and that is Stephen King's Fairy Tale. Now, I've admittedly never read a Stephen King book before. This is my first one, and it just kind of caught my eye, you know, mostly because of the cover, the fairy tale aspect of it, and I read the first chapter, and I was really hooked. And the reason I recommend this book specifically is because I've always had an interest in mythology, fairy tales, folklore. And, you know, I like a little bit of the horror aspect too, the Stranger Things, and that's kind of what this book is. It's a mixture of Stranger Things with fairy tales and folklore written with that Stephen King polish. You know, Stephen King's written a lot of books, and that has given him the ability to write very clearly and effectively. So this book is a really easy read despite its thickness, and it's really enjoyable. And yeah, it's dark fantasy, it's fairy tale elements. So, you know, fairy tale elements call back to the Germanic mythologies as well. You know, most fairy tales that survive in our modern world, a lot of them come from Grimm's brothers, which was Germanic. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed this. Not to give too much of the plot away, because it does kind of unfold in a really interesting way. It kind of is based on a boy, a dog, and a secret world of fantasy creatures. But all still kind of based in our reality, so it doesn't feel so up in the sky that you can't connect to anything, which is often my critique of reading fantasy writing, is that they're not grounded enough in our reality to give me something to hold on to. And so this book is really good at giving us something in our world that then is accessible to a fairy tale kingdom. And so yeah, if you're looking for some kind of escape, a good book with good characters that is well written and has an element, a good element of fantasy and fairy tale and magic, I think this is a really good book. So that is why that my fiction fantasy recommendation for you this year is Stephen King's A Fairy Tale. Now this kind of covers all the books that I've read that I want to recommend to you. This final little segment here, I want to give 2 additional books. One of those is a book that's on my list that I'm beginning to read right now. Seriously, I've not read that far into it. This was given to me by a friend, and I've just not had the time. It's one that I've heard recommended before on Native American spirituality and belief. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This book really goes into a lot of the Native belief system and how it still survives today. And it's like, I've read one chapter of it and I can already tell it's heavy, it's good, it's emotional, it's charged, and there's just a lot of great information. And so as someone who, obviously being born in North America, feeling very connected to the spirits here, having some ancestral connection to the native peoples here, particularly the Cherokee, having this kind of book, so good, because it definitely looks at it from the spiritual angle. I'm really looking forward to diving more into this, but yeah, after one chapter, I'm like, whoa, I need to like make space for this book. So honorable mention, Braiding Sweetgrass, definitely check it out. And this is going to be one of my first reads of 2025, is getting through this. I'm really excited to take notes and dig into this right here. And now I lose all credibility because the very last book I recommend is The Glastonbury Tourist by me. because this book has so much soul in it. Honestly, this book was not written for a money grab. I didn't write this because I'm like, I need to make money. I wrote this because I needed some way to transcribe my experiences, what I've been through, the people I've met, into a written format that I could share with other people. Because there's so much that has happened in these last couple of years behind the camera that I've not been able to record. And so this book is my way of sharing those experiences with you, the viewer. And so there is so much of so many of the lessons that I've learned, so much of the amazing characters and people I've met in my travels, all wrapped into this. A lot of my love for Avalon and Glastonbury, but also my critiques of it, my critiques of modern spirituality, some of the pitfalls of modern spirituality and belief. There's so much in here. The reviews so far have been so very good. So truly, supporting this book helps me as a creative person also share with you, but also helps me create this content. And so if you're looking for a book that can inspire you in a fictional way, with fun, with lightness, but also going into the depths of spirituality and its struggles, The Glastonbury Tourist, I think, is a really great book. Sorry about that final plug there. Of course I have to mention the book that I wrote, but with that, we're gonna end this video. I hope it's been helpful for you. I hope you found some books that you haven't heard of. Seriously, Soulcraft, there's one book from this list. It's not The Glastonbury Tourist, I think you should pick up. It's a Soulcraft. Seriously, this book helped me so much. It's very meditative, and I think it's helpful for anyone, any path they're on. So if there's one book you purchase from this list, it's Soulcraft. And finally, I think all I have left to say is I wish you all the best in 2025. I know the 2020s started off very interesting for us as a species, but we got 5 more years left of the 20s, and they've not exactly been the roaring 20s that we expected them to be, but I have hope for the future. Just as I have hope for the content moving forward on this channel. I've been making videos for 5 years. It'll be 6 years this year I've been making YouTube videos. So make sure you subscribe and check out my backlog of content. Really excited for what I'm going to create for you, the viewer, this coming year. And I'll leave you with that going into 2025. I wish you all the best and many blessings, and may you read many books.